The sun was going down when Bakugou was informed that they are nearing their destination. Due to the protest of the people, his party decided to take another route. Instead of traveling to the north by land, they were opting on sailing there instead. A ship has been prepared, and they will take the shortest route possible to get to the dock by the sunshine. Bakugou is certain that he countermeasured everything. So, when the dark enveloped the land, and when his party of soldiers are getting too tired from marching all day, he lets his guard up, and for everything that might happen. They were passing through the woods in a very rocky road where his carriage is almost struggling to pull, where his men are almost breaking information due to the difficult terrain. And all of a sudden, he heard shots. Across from them, Kirishima shot up, when an arrow pierced a hole into the carriage roof, dangerously close to Bakugou's head. "Get down!" the blonde yelled, and Kirishima complied, activating his quirk to cover Bakugou. They were lowering themselves in the cramped space of the carriage as more arrows were being fired. Bakugou knew the vehicle won't shield them anymore. He kicked the door open, and the sound of chaos is longer muffled by the walls of the carriage. Kirishima continued to cover him as they got out. "Kachan!" Midoriya cried out in concern as he got out of his own carriage. The man came charging at Bakugou, but the blonde was quick to use his quirk to blow the man up. "What the fuck is going on?" He yelled and looked at the situation. He saw a group of citizens with pitchforks, guns, knives, matches, and bows and arrows attacking the men. "They just arrived out of nowhere, Kachan. You need to get somewhere safe," Midoriya provided. Bakugou glared at the scholar upon his suggestion. He decided he is not a coward and he will stay in the battle. Ignoring Midoriya, Ruby eyes scanned the area again. It made sense to him that those angry citizens were obviously hiding beyond the trees before they were waiting to ambush. The question is, how did they know he would take this route? "Drive them away," he ordered Midoriya, who complied and helped with dealing with the citizens on the other side. He vexated came rushing, and Bakugou began yelling at the soldiers to hold the citizens back. Suddenly, mere citizens would be no match to his trained soldiers. That is, if every single one of them were mere citizens. He was so sure that they were just mere citizens, and kept advancing further into the field where the fight is dense. He kept pushing the angry people away and helped his men mobilize them. "Bakugou, you need to get out of here now!" Kirishima yelled from across the field. "Like hell I would!" Bakugou kept yelling, fighting off the citizens. There weren't so many left of them as some started retreating out of fear. Bakugou kept walking forward, and just as atop another step, blue light suddenly flashed, creating an eerie glow as it whizzed through them. Bakugou looked around, and the temperature started increasing. He found out it wasn't just a light, but blazing line of blue fire, and his target is Bakugou, as the flames start to engulf his surroundings, completely trapping him. The citizens start to flee upon the arrival of the new chaos. Bakugou only then found out he strayed too far from Kirishima or any other soldiers. The enemy was successfully to separate him from his allies. "Bakugou, don't come any closer, Kirishima," he warned before the redhead could dive into the flames. Bakugou turned his focus on the upcoming silhouette in front of him. "You should have stayed behind, King," the person said in mockery as he revealed himself. Bakugou glared at the raven-haired man in front of him with a somewhat lanky body and his body littered with patches of wrinkles and purple skin. Blue flames emitted from one of his hands, and there is one doubt. He is the culprit of this burning blaze. "Who the hell are you?" The blonde sneered as he read himself for any attack. The man only gave him a smug smile before lifting his arms and directing a blast of flames towards Bakugou. The blonde propelled himself out of the way of the attack and landed safely outside the ring of fire. The man did not follow, but another enemy appeared. "Blow down to your king, Hino!" A man in all black started attacking Bakugou while uttering confusing words. Swaying his arms from the ground to move the direction of the man, Bakugou fired off a blast and drove the man away. The man in black dodged his attack and was about to charge again, but Kirishima held him back. Kachan! Midoriya came running to aid him and also got held back with another enemy, with multiple blades blocking his way. Bakugou clicked his tongue and wondered just how many enemies were out there. Then the man with blue flames appeared again to continue his attack on Bakugou. It came continuously, and Bakugou was struck in defending and avoiding. But he found an opportunity when he slid away from the man from just the right distance. When he thought it was proper, he raised his arms and felt his veins vibrating with heat, the sound of loud explosions reverberating, and Bakugou fired off a large blast to incinerate the enemy in front of him. His arms started to twist from the use of his quirk, but he was led to ignore it. He waited for the smoke to clear to see if he took down the enemy, except to find a burning and tattered body. Bakugou was surprised when he saw a puddle of mud where the man used to stand. Huh? Before he could have any time to react, he heard the slightest noise of something small landing underneath him. Looking down, he saw a small marble round and hitting the tip of his boot. All of a sudden, Bakugou was caught off guard when the marble blew up and a man with the blue flames appeared before him. His reflexes got to him quickly, jumping away from the man, but it was all too late when Bakugou saw the sight of the man's hand directing towards him. Then a blast of blue flame swept him like a wave of boiling sea of fire. A part of his body is burning, and the pain is too much to handle. And just like that, the king gave in to the burning pain and let himself sleep. Yin is now awake, very much awake, ignoring the cold wind that hit her body as she ran through the hallway. Her only goal is to get to Bakugou's room. Uraraka is frantically following after her, with a candelabra to light their way. The sound of muffled cries continued to lead Yin all the way to his room, and when she arrives there, she saw the others, all worried, sick, and crying as they stared at the door of Bakugou's room. Yin! Midnight came to her with tears in her eyes. Where is he? Yin asked, her brows furrowed. Inside. He's in really bad condition when Midoriya and Kirishima brought him back. Midnight nearly choked on her own tears. It was horrible. Yin looked to see Kirishima, who was crouching down on the floor, all ragged and dirty. He was looking down and muttering something as Mina comforted him. He's here. Yin turned to see Midoriya has arrived, and with the physician Ida. Oh, thank God, Midnight sighed. Excuse me. Physician Ida immediately went inside. The door opened and Yin caught a glimpse of Bakugou's condition. Her breathing halted when she saw multiple burns on the right side of his body, and he doesn't look like he's breathing well. Unconsiderately, she took a step forward and was about to go in, but the doors closed. I want to see him. She immediately turned to Midnight. The elder noble shook her head. It's not a good time, Yin. You don't have to see him like this. Let us leave him to the physician and hope that he'll be healed. But No. Kirishima suddenly intervened, and he finally stood up. The redhead looked at everyone, which caused that and baffled. No one must go near Bakugou, Kirishima stated. And why is that? Lady Kami, who had been quiet, finally uttered a word. I think Kirishima-san is being cautious not only for the fact the king was attacked, Momonosuke stepped in, but someone gave the enemy an information about the king's His Majesty's route. Yin's eyes widened as doubt had been planted. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. Someone in this court wants Bakugou dead, Kirishima said, which left everyone dead silent. Yin's lips pursed, knowing that she is the best culprit for the suspect. She looked around and saw Midoriya looking at her, asking if it was her. Suddenly, she shook her head to tell him it was not her. She may dislike Bakugou and his rulings, but she is not a person that wants to kill him. Midoriya broke away and turned to everyone. You're right. We need to make sure no one in this court will get to Katan. And while we're at it, we need to find the traitor. Who would even want him dead? Midnight asked. Lots of people, apparently. Kaminari answered. Midnight glared at him. Well, what are we going to do when we find the traitor? Mina asked. Kirishima spoke again. We will interrogate and investigate everyone. Hear their whereabouts, see if there's something off, and if anyone ever stepped foot inside Bakugou's room aside from physician and me, they'll be immediately branded as a traitor. Lady Kame scoffed. Except you? How do we know you're not the traitor, Kirishima? Because I almost died trying to rescue Bakugou from the enemy, to bring him here, and to keep him alive. And I swear with my life that I will catch whoever wanted my friend dead. That's not enough proof. It may not be for you, but for everyone here knows how I lay my life down for Bakugou, not as his subject, but as a friend. Kirishima stated, looking at everyone. If any of you deemed my actions suspicious, you can go and apprehend me, but I swear to you, I am not. I will never want him dead. Everyone fell silent again. Yin's eyes trained on Lady Kame, who displayed multiple emotions at a time: frustration, fear, and worry. The lady, having heard enough, walked out. Everyone relaxed and Midnight sighed before she turned to Kirishima. We trust you, Kirishima. Find the traitor. The redhead then nodded. I will start now. Everyone stared in disprint, except Midnight, who wanted to stay in case the physician wanted to say something about Bakugou's condition. Yin chose to stay too. There, this otherwising feeling of nervousness and dread in the pit of her stomach, which her rational made her not understand as to why she is so worried for Bakugou. In fact, she should be celebrating, for this is an almost opportunity for her. If he dies now, the throne wouldn't be hers. Yet, she chose to stay and hear anything, just something that might indicate his whereabouts. Suddenly, Kirishima approached her, and with an almost guilty yet determined look on his face, he said to her, Your Majesty, I will interrogate you first. Where were you these past few days, Your Majesty? Kirishima lowered his voice, blunted with the slow ticks of the clock that filled Yin's chambers. It's almost past midnight, yet the palace is still alive, stricken with fear for the king's life. In my chambers. Yin's answer is short and true. She pretended to answer what she's only asked, and her answers must be true. Lying would only make the situation worse now that most of the people in this palace would suspect her. And do you have someone who would prove your alibi is genuine? Kirishima asked again. Yes, I have Uraraka here to prove that. I've been staying in my room. You can also ask Midnight. And when did you leave your room, Your Majesty? Last night. She answered truthfully and knows that Kirishima will start to suspect her more, but Yin knew that it's true. And where did you go last night? I took a walk around the palace. And do you have anyone who can prove that as well? To prove that you stayed inside the palace? To prove that you did not leave? Yin tilted her head. You were saying I might have left the palace to contact some people to ambush my husband? Kirishima took a breath and leaned back in his chair. Yes. Well, I didn't do it. You could ask the guards that saw me wander inside the palace. Ask them if they ever saw me leave. Yin did not order for Bakugou's death. That is true. I apologize, Your Majesty, but you do know that everyone is a suspect, Kirishima said. Especially me. The red-haired went silent before he stood up and offered a bow. I shall check on your alibi, Your Majesty. He then turned to the door. Yin stood up and called for him. You think it's me? She said, halting his steps. I did not order for anyone to kill him. I may dislike him, and we may have our share of arguments. But I am not like him, Kirishima. I could never wish for someone's death. Kirishima lowered his head. I understand, but if there's one person who would benefit from the king's death, it would be you. Yin narrowed her eyes as she dared Kirishima to say something more. After all, if he dies, the throne will be passed on to you. As expected, the word of the king's life being in a terminal situation is being contained so the people outside the palace and people outside the kingdom won't ever hear a single word. It is for the reason that half of the people will worry for their monarch's whereabouts, and the other half of them, well, lots who favor the rebellion, will take this opportunity to create havoc. That goes the same for, well, other kingdoms. With Igneus's king in deathbed, other kings would very much take this opportunity of invading the great kingdom of Igneus, as that's what other kings would do. The only people who knew about Bakugou's situation are the nobles and servants in the palace, who swore to secrecy. Kirishima made sure that the nobles, especially the ones who spread words like wildfire, would not utter a single word to anyone outside the palace. Kirishima has also limited the court people's whereabouts from the palace as one of his courtiness. He's determined in keeping Bakugou safe has been greatly helpful, yet he is yet to find the traitor. Yin admired his vulgar. He is scared after what happened to his friend, but kept on to make sure his friend stays alive, and whoever betrayed him will be caught. Kirishima worked hard to avoid as much concerns from the people in other kingdoms as possible. The only one buried with such concerns are the court nobles. Whispers and cries of worries has been echoing throughout the palace walls. Their concerns mostly for the dying king and about the future of the monarchy, since there's still technically no heir yet. One particular whisper Yin was found herself pinning her attention on is the concern of the people at this point. If the king won't survive, the queen will take the throne. Yin, as a foreigner, knew that she isn't regarded by very nobles in this place. The nobles knew that once Yin becomes the ruling monarch, she will have to change her court, one that's in her favor, meaning she might expel some nobles away from the court to replace nobles who favor her. That's what the people think. But as of now, Yin considers far from that. What she's worried about the most right now, though, is that Bakugou is unable to do anything as well. Is the ongoing war that is currently happening between Igneus and Glacia. A few days after the night that Bakugou was attacked, a word of General Aizawa considering the war avoiding the palace, and that they were facing some complexities. The general will be coming here to Igneus to share an important about the war, Kirishima explained to them. He stated it is something he would like for the king to handle. Midnight then asked, were they not informed of Bakugou's state? No. I forbade any word of Bakugou's situation to reach outside the court. Did General Aizawa ever say what he wanted from Kachan? Midoriya asked. No. But the fact that there is a problem in the front means he would need Bakugou to plan something. General Aizawa never did anything on his own without Bakugou's permission, and I bet that's what he wants from him. Should General Aizawa just go ahead and plan something? He's the general, after all, Ian intervened. Although she knows of General Aizawa's conflict with Bakugou being in charge of everything, she thought that this was finally the time for the general to take his reins in battle once again. Well, Bakugou obtained he would be in charge of everything the general merely follows, Kirishima suggested. But we need to do something. The moment that Kirishima's eyes met Yin's, she knew that this will be her time to step into Bakugou's shoes yet again. Looking at everyone, Kirishima stated, I think it is now time for Her Majesty to take over. Because of that, Yin is now burdened to try her best in facing General Aizawa upon his concern of the war. If there is a problem, Yin has to step in and solve it. The problem is she is not knowledgeable enough in warfare and is afraid she would only make a fool of herself when the time comes for her to face the general and his soldiers. Yin decided not to indulge on the fact now that she has taken control of everything, but she decided to learn some things that might help her with the topic of war. For days, Yin locked herself up in her room after sorting through the library of books about war and strategy. Day after day, she spent in her room, burning her eyes on every book to gain knowledge and be of use in the war room when the time comes. Tomorrow, the general will finally arrive. Yin is even more anxious when Uraraka now worries her. He will be all right, Your Majesty. Yin broke away from her trance and smiled at the brunette. Thank you, Uraraka, but I need to make sure I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. With all the pile of books, I'm sure you would have mastered the warfare already. I do hope so. Ian chuckled. It's just the pressure, I think. Uraka moved to sit down beside her to hear more. Everyone says Katsuki is a good war strategist. He's an aptitude. I wonder what he would do in this situation. The brunette sighed before speaking. But now it's all up to you, isn't it? He's dying, and everything is all up to you. I believe you can do it, Yin. With your stubbornness and all, I'm sure you can do it. The edge of Yin's lips pursed with genuine, a warm smile as she faced Uraka. I needed that. Thank you, Uraka. Anytime, Yin. She nodded, then stood up. Well, I have to go and prepare your dinner since you don't plan on going out to the dining room. A short chuckle left the royalty's lips. I'll be eating alone anyways. Uraka faced her, a little stunned, but the brunette only offered a sad smile upon Yin, who now has her eyes trained on a view outside the window. The servant said nothing any more and walked out. Yin turned back to the door to contain once more, but a knock came from the door. It opened, and she looked to see Midnight quietly stuttering into her chambers. Midnight? Is something you need? Yin said, standing up. Yes, Midnight answered. I need you to come with me. Where? To see someone, was all she said before grabbing Yin by the arm and gently dragging her all the way inside her chambers. They walked and got to her bed. Midnight circled around it to get to the other side, and Yin followed. The noble stopped at the wall beside Yin's bed and started tapping on the wall everywhere. Midnight, what are you doing? Yin asked, puzzled about the noble's weird actions. I told you, you're going to see someone, she said, still tapping on the wall as if searching for something. I need to see the crack around here somewhere. Why would there be a crack in my... Yin wasn't able to finish her sentence when Midnight suddenly pressed something and there's a click. Then a sound of the wall suddenly opened like a door, presenting a secret passage. Wall... Yin said, her attempt to finish her sentence, as she suspected the barely lit passage. There's a secret passage here. All this time? Yin asked bewilderment and watched Midnight grab the candelabra. The noble grabbed her hand and started to lead her inside. Yes, now let's go. But Midnight, did you even know where this is going? Yes, trust me, my dear. Yin was silent for a moment before taking a step, and Midnight smiled. She led Yin into the passageway, which looked so complicating, but Yin made sure to remember the way back in case something happens. They turned and turned at every corner before Midnight finally stopped in front of another wall. Midnight, where are we going? She asked the noble in a whisper. You'll see. Midnight started searching for a gap in the wall, and another click was heard before the wall opened for them. Bright light poured in, and Yin closed her eyes for a moment, while stepping forward into whatever room Midnight had led her in. When she opened her eyes and blinked, her eyes widen when she realized she's inside Bakugou's chambers. In front of them is Bakugou's bed, and the blonde himself lying on it. Yin took a sharp breath, as this would be the first time after a few days she had seen him. I know I told you that you might not be able to handle seeing him like this, Midnight said, placing the candelabra on the table. But I wanted to see him and thought you might want to see him as well. The noble kept her eye on the blonde, and Yin walked to get Bakugou's side. It's awful. Yin's voice cracked as she watched Bakugou. Yin's eyes never left his battered figure. Her heart clenched as she looked at his state. Almost all his right side was badly burned, and patches are covering them as physician Ida was been attending to cure him. His breathing seemed short and difficult. We have someone whose quirk can heal, but she's no longer here. Midnight started to say, seemingly trying to stop her tears. If only someone can fix him. Yin's ears perked, and she looked at Midnight briefly before glancing back at Bakugou again. She stared at his dying form, her husband's dying form. I can fix him, Yin thought in her head. Her hands clenched at her dress. The temptations to rise and place him on Bakugou is slowly overcoming her. She was close, so close to doing it. But then, the thought of her coup invaded her mind. If he's gone, I can finally have the throne for myself. Conflicted, Yin fought herself, unmoving as her thoughts fight inside her head. Her mind is trying to sort whatever it would side on, more rational though of letting him die right here and now. so she won't need her coop anymore. But there's also this part of her that made her heart clench so much that Yin hated the stirring of it. And it seems the only way to reveal herself is to see Bakugou up and rising again. Absorbed in her thoughts, Yin did not realize Midnight has been calling for her. The noble touched her arm, and Yin felt the strings in her eyes when she moved to see Midnight. Midnight smiled sadly at her. "We have to go now. We can't stay here for long." Yin breathed and gave a nod before following Midnight to the passageway again. They got inside, and Midnight went to close the wall. Before it shut, Yin took one last look at Bakugou again and realized her feelings were very conflicted.